everybody. I want to welcome you to Pep Talk with Tisha Hammond. This is the show where we elevate the conversation around entrepreneurship. You got a sneak peek of today's guest star. I didn't bring my coffee mug. I brought something different today. Get yours. Let's get to this intro video and let's have a different type of fun today.
You are listening to Pep Talk with Tisha Hammond. Thank you for tuning in to hear as she brings cheer to your ear.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are all around the world. We are confident that Pep Talk Live with Tisha Hammond is on 6 of the 7 continents, and y'all know we're trying to get to Antarctica. So we're going to keep trying. I have reached out to the polar enthusiasts. I've reached out to the seasonal residents. I've reached out to the government. We are going to get this message of entrepreneurship onto 7 of 7 continents. And we're going to do that because I believe in you. And I believe that when we work together, combine our resources together, we can stay on the mountaintop of entrepreneurship longer. And I believe that y'all believe that too. And that's why you watch, right? Or is it because you watch because you know that these messages and these comments are going to get posted on the live screen? Is that why y'all watching? Well, either way, let's say good morning to our captain of the Global Pep Squad, the Mary Wells. She's saying happy and terrific Tuesday to everyone. I asked y'all to grab your hats, and let's see, Mary has got hers. Thank you. And we have Crystal here. Thank you, Crystal, for bringing your hope and being a hope catalyst to the show. Like Mary Wells, I'm going to say whoop, whoop to that. And we have Dee. Good morning to you, dear. So happy that you're joining us, Queen. Thank y'all from watching across the platforms. You are either watching on my Facebook company page at The Small Business Cheerleader. You're watching from my LinkedIn channel, Tisha Hammond, or from YouTube, Tisha Hammond, the Small Business Cheerleader. And I would love, love, love if you would share the show across your social platforms. Let's get this conversation going around entrepreneurship. Let's hear the guest star's story and share them, and let's hear your story. So we're always glad that folks nominate future guest stars to the show. We have another incredible guest here today. I need to thank our sponsors, because without the help and support of sponsors and advertisers, we might have stayed back in season 1, but that didn't happen. We have some very supportive sponsors. I want to thank Dell Technologies for being our technology partner and helping us broadcast this across the world. We know and love and thank LaTanya Orr. If you haven't met LaTanya Orr, you don't know what you've been missing. She is the curator, the producer of A Woman's Resilience, which our guest star is going to talk about today, in addition to the amazing things that she herself is doing. So let's give a big round of applause to our sponsors this morning, and let's bring in our guest star. Today we have a dear friend, an incredible entrepreneur in the Metro Detroit area who's sharing messages that you probably haven't heard before across your platforms. And we want to show her some love. We want to be welcoming. I want you to light up the comments with a whoop whoop for Linda Hannah, the hat aficionado at Hat Moments. Come on in here, Linda.
Tisha, how are you doing?
Blessed and highly favored. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for having me here. And thank you to the Pep Squad and the Captain Mary Wells and all that they do.
Oh my goodness. You are so welcome. The comments are continuing to pour in. People thanking you for the positivity that you're going to share today and sending their good mornings to you. How about while I show these incredible comments, you get the Pep Squad familiar with who you are and what you love doing?
Well, Tisha, I love everything hats. That's why I'm the hat aficionado. Everything surrounding the subject, activities, the pastimes of hats. And I got into it when I've been sewing since I was 12. And I got into hat making actually in my early 20s when a friend, her daughter had a hat on I really liked. And I said, "Where'd you get it from?" And she said, "Oh, I made it." And so I found out and took classes at Mertes Millinery in Detroit and learned millinery and ended up getting into making and designing hats. And some of the things came naturally because I had been sewing. And thanks to my mom, my sister and I learned how to sew, knit, and crochet at a young age. And at that time, they had home economics in class, and that was a very good positive thing for me. And I got some good skills from that. And I tell you, Tisha, I really believe that the seed for entrepreneurship really started when I was a little girl. I am so blessed that I wish my dad was alive today, but he was a TV repairman and my uncle was a barber. And my parents found a home in Detroit on McClellan Street. It was sort of a busy street, so kind of good for marketing since he had a large window there. They found a home with a shop made onto it, right in the middle of a regular neighborhood. And I tell you, this window as a little kid looked like it was 15 feet by 15 feet in window. And in the top center of the window was this large neon clock. And at the top it said T.L. Garrett TV Repair. Well, the term entrepreneur sure wasn't used back then. And I remember hearing my mother say, "Well, your dad is self-employed." That was the term used, self-employed. In our home, I would go down the kitchen and to the basement, and I would walk past that big, huge furnace, and there would be tons of TVs set up for being repaired. Go up a couple of stairs, and there was my dad fixing and working on televisions. I had the privilege of going with him to Sylvania, to the repair shop and to the parts place to pick up parts, and also to go to homes where he repaired TVs right then on site, or others he took with them back to the shop. So it was real live brick and mortar, watching a successful businessman. And then my mom's brother, he was Uncle Walter to me, but known as Mr. Hollywood in the east side of Detroit on Harper and the Van Dyke area. Everyone of a certain age or so knows Mr. Hollywood.
Okay.
And he had a unisex barbershop. He was an amazing barber, but not many unisex shops were around. And so my sister and my mom, they could get their hair permed and cut, and my brother, his hair could be cut, right? And so his shop was huge with about 7 chairs. And so he also had a limousine business. So I feel like this entrepreneurship was like in my DNA, and I couldn't help but end up in business for myself.
Oh my gosh. If there's anyone out there in the Global Pep Squad from Detroit area and you know and remember Mr. Hollywood, say so in the comments. That is so incredible. Such a small world, right?
Yes, it is.
Such a small world. Well, let's get right into the heart of the show. I already see questions coming in, and I want you to just enjoy the amount of love that's about to be shown in the questions and comments. And let's sit back while you take us on a ride into your entrepreneurship journey. Okay.
Okay.
The first stop that we want to go on with you is to the mountaintop. The time that you remember best as an entrepreneur where things were working in your favor. You had found position. You were getting sales. You were getting booked. Things were working the way you had planned for them to go, and you knew that you were born to call yourself boss, even though you might have had a career, elsewhere at the same time. Tell us that mountaintop moment for you.
Well, that mountaintop moment would be early in 2017. As I told you, I made and designed hats for over 20 something years. And for a short time, I dissolved the business and was working full time, got a college degree and other things. Eventually, I resumed the business. And I just really believe I was guided by God to start it in a different area. And that was talking about the history of hats because of some requests to do so at events sometime when a commentator wouldn't show up. Someone would say, "Hey, Linda, can you fill in for the commentator?" And I thought, of course, these are my hats. It's a great way to sell them. So they get the model all dialed up, put my hat on her head, and I'd be glad to talk about them.
Okay.
But during that time, because I grew up watching a lot of classical movies and I love old classic black and white movies, absolutely love them. Sometimes I forget the theme of the movie because I get into the hats and the clothing. Well, during the commentating, I might say, "Oh, if from 1940s, Joan Crawford may have had on this really square shoulder top, or jacket." And so leading into that got me into hat moments. But the mountaintop was when in 2017, I met LaTanya Orr, who actually designed my logo, my website, and everything. She's an amazing marketing and branding person. And from there, hat moments, speaking opportunities started literally before I launched my business. The mountaintop would be, I attended a career mastered event. And I had told my husband, Keith, I said, man, I would love to speak at the historical library one day. They have the speakers forum there. Now, you know how sometimes you say things casually and in passing, and then you don't think much more about it, right? Well, I go to this event, and during the event, she had a talent meets marketplace. And as I walk through this event, I rounded the corner and I see a huge sign that says Detroit Historical Society. I thought, oh my goodness. I basically ran to that table. I didn't even have business cards made. She had just designed the logo. I just went and pitched myself a little bit to the woman and told her what I do. And she was very much a person of her word, which is a critical skill to have in business, being a person of your word. She said, you know what, I'm going to pass your information along to our education manager. And she did. Within 2 days, I got a call and she said, we'd love to come and have you speak about the history of hats for the Detroit Historical Museum. That was an amazing highlight, especially having taken my children there when they were younger and really getting back into the history. It was fun.
Amen. Amen. We have some questions coming in for you. The first is from Mary Wells, and I want to combine this with another one of her questions. She asked about how do you get young people involved in the history of hats and liking this topic? And then can we talk about some recommendations you might have? I showed this hat. I'm hoping you're going to help me wear it. I don't wear hats, but I love this one.
So do I.
Need a little bit of help here, but can you just, give us some insight into Mary's questions for a moment?
Yes, well, I think in getting young people interested, it would kind of tap into having them pull forth talents and abilities they have, whether it's design or history or whatever. And with young people, college, a lot of them are fashion design students that are in college that may have an interest toward clothing fashion, maybe fashion history. And so they would be more prone to listen to it. I think with the history of hats, what's fun about it, and I'm a student at all times. I'm always reading and I'm always learning, and it's so very interesting to me. Sometimes you can tie some things that happened in the past, what was happening in the economy and even fashion at that time. If you look at a movie with Angelina Jolie in it called The Changeling, it was the period of it was in the 1930s. All the colors were somber and subdued. The colors she wore were pale grays and taupe and pink because the time was, after the war and all that was considered to be kind of a down-like time. Well, sometimes it can be interesting to learn the reasons why things were happening, why lapels got smaller, after the war, and there's a shortage on silk because of the war. I think tying some of the things in with history that way will help get some young people involved, something that will interest them. They have some interest in cars and history. There's history of everything that we do, the history of cars, the history of hats, the history of the corset, and the history of corsets, you would be amazed at what happened to women's bodies when they wore corsets. And that's another whole story.
I know that's right. You have a message here from Pamela Gales. She's commenting about how beautiful you look and remembering you and Howard's creativity and remembering the movies, if that rings a bell, and you're glowing with the hat passion. We concur and believe that too, Pamela. Thank you for that comment. We appreciate
Hi, Pamela. Thank you so much for that. We go way back to before we were married, actually. We were in school together. Thank you for that shout out, Pam.
Wonderful. All right. So I have pulled out a gift that was given to me by my mother. Can you tell what material this is just by looking at it?
Well,
Linda?
it looks like a felt, especially with those holes punched in it. It's probably a felt
Okay.
or a type of like a wool felt that you can get punctured holes in it really nice and clean. Any other fabric that's got too much softness, you're not going to get those nice crisp holes. I do absolutely love that hat. That's a fedora with a twist. Trust me. In fact, I would really like your hat.
So,
but I won't take it. That is I've sold some hats off my head over the years, and you know what happens with that? I never ended up making it again. And so then, it's a hat gone, but someone really wanted it and I ended up selling it. That hat is gorgeous. And I like how they added the twist of a like a type of bow on it, and it's not a traditional bow. That's that classic fedora. And I tell people that fedora actually means that word is derived, a Greek word, Theodorus, which means gift of God. And there was a woman in 1887 who played a Russian princess in a play. And that's where that name came from, fedora. And fedora, that is one hat you're going to see man and woman in. It's totally a unisex hat, right? I mean, well, it's almost like a bowler. A bowler is called a bowler in Britain, but it's called a derby here in the US. But same type, it's kind of unisex hat. And pretty much, I always tell people, you know, some people tell me I have a big head or I have a little head and hats don't look right on me. But I say that hats look good on everyone. It's just getting the right hat. I mean, this fascinator is something I made some time ago. It's one of my fun hats I like to wear. And it looks good. This, because it's not really a hat, you know, it's just sitting on the side. So someone who really doesn't want a hat down on their head, you don't have to, but you can have a head piece. And back in the day, in the 30s and 40s, cocktail hats, you know, you'd hear the word cocktail hats, but kind of synonymous with fascinator. You know, fascinator became more popular after the British weddings, the royal weddings. And so that word went like, whoo, fascinator. But before then, you didn't hear it quite as much.
No. Now I've pulled out my hat, and the people all over the world can see this incredible fascinator that you're wearing. And Mary Wells asked a great question. She says, do you offer styling that includes hats? Do you style people?
I have not. I used to. When I made and designed hats, I would have hat fittings, and women would have private hat and birthday tea parties. And they would, in fact, in that private setting was the best time for women to kind of let loose, because the ones who were afraid to wear a hat in a store, you know, they were afraid to put a hat on in the store. In a private girlfriend party, oh, they're like, girl, try that on, that looks good on you. Then they got the nerve up in a private setting. So some women who didn't wear hats before, they began wearing hats. You know, there's this whole thing about the 10 commandments of hat wearing. And one of the commandments is thou shalt not wear a hat wider than your shoulders. You know, if you're 4'11", thou shalt not wear a hat, you know, more than, 5 inches tall. But I tell you what, some women, they have what's called a hatitude, and they will wear it no matter what. Okay. So 4'11", give me a wide hat. Okay. A 6 foot tall woman may wear a tall hat because she's got a hatitude, and she can pull it off. And she's like, I like this. This is what I like, and this is what I'm wearing. You know,
A hatitude. I love it. So how do I wear this? I literally do not wear this, but
okay, take it straight back with that bow on your left side.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Straight back. And how do I sit it down?
Now you need to well, kind of tilt it to the side. I kind of like it tilted the other way. Well, it depends on the feel. Now bring it towards your forehead a little bit more. Let me make a comment about the 1950s. Many people know Jackie Onassis, Jackie O, and she was known in the 50s for wearing a pillbox, the hat. Most of the pictures you see her in is sitting on the back of her head, right? But that's not how I want you to put that on.
Okay.
I'm actually making a point that, to me, if I wore a pillbox, it would be more kind of down on the head. Now, that looks good right there. You could always bring it down a little bit more. The fedora, I love that hat. The movies from the gangsters in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. I said to my husband one day, I said, do you notice something about when they were fighting in those movies? Do you know that hat did not come off that man's head? Seriously. I mean, Humphrey Bogart, others, they're like fighting in these movies with these little tiny short ties on, right? And then they've got fedoras on. I'm telling you, those hats were made of some of the best quality. And I really get into those when I'm looking at movies. Like I said, I look at all the designs and features of hats when I'm looking at movies. And I like that. That red is really cute. I like that red on you. But I like the embellishment on the side. Most of the time, fedoras don't have anything on them. A fedora is a pretty plain hat. I mean, it's got your dip, it's got your crown, your brim, but it usually doesn't need too much on it. The way they did the bow there is subdued and kind of laid back. It's not frou-frou, because it doesn't, frilly would not go with that. A cute little puffy bow. No. But they did it really well. I love it.
Well, I think I will keep it on for the rest of the show. And I don't know that I've ever loved the hat, but I'm starting to like it a whole lot more now that I have an idea of how it should sit on my head. So thank you.
You're welcome. And I see that you took it off of a plastic mold you had. Did it come with that when you purchased it? That's really nice to keep it stored on.
It did come with this, and
Nice.
I was super thankful because I would not have gone out to get one. So this was really nice.
That's really great. You know why? Because most hats that are sold do not come with that form. People take tissue paper and put it in their hat, and hats will last for decades. I mean, put them in a hat box and have tissue over them, and they're really lasting. I have people that give me vintage hats. I have a total collection of them that I've gotten from Leah's Closet, a vintage store in Royal Oak. She's just fabulous. I work with her out there, and she's actually recommended me for some speaking opportunities. So that, just from buying hats from her, a lady walked in and said, "Hey, I need someone to talk about hat history at an event coming up," and that's how I ended up getting a speaking event. So here I am buying vintage hats from her, and it turned into a speaking opportunity.
Amen. That's what we like. We like getting out there and networking and sharing our story, and people finding value in the conversations that interest them. So to the Global Pep Squad, I want you to be on the lookout for conversations that you think Linda Hanna should be a part of, and make these connections and introductions to her. Now, Linda, we got to go into the Valley just for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So here in the Valley of Entrepreneurship, we want to know your experience on kind of like the darker days in being in business for yourself, but we really want to know the lesson that you pulled out of that Valley experience. Can you share one with us?
I do have one, and of course, the last year in 2020 impacted many people. Typically, when I'm engaged to speak for an organization, they usually book me out a year early, like libraries, women's associations. So I had some bookings for 2020, and one in particular I was super excited about was at the Detroit Library, the main branch. I homeschooled my kids for like 10 years, and so we spent a lot of years at that main branch library, knowing the librarian there and getting videos and all that kind of thing. So to get contacted by them and asking me to come speak, I was thrilled. Well, it was for May 5th of 2020. So of course that got canceled, and I had another event that got canceled. But you know what? I had an opportunity that came up after being kind of disappointed. I thought, well, it's going to get rescheduled, before the year's up. That didn't happen. But a young lady that I know, she belongs to the Pearls of Promise Foundation. Her name is Dale, and I appreciate her. She recommended me to them when they had a stay-home tea in June. They usually have an annual tea. They were determined to still have it. They had it at home. And what it is they had someone speak 15 minutes on the history of tea, and then they wanted 15 minutes on the history of hats, but it was all on Zoom. So it was my first opportunity to speak on Zoom. I am so used to speaking in person, right? I have my vintage table. It's like a little museum, right? And people get to see hats up close and personal. And I love what I do. I love the variety of people I meet, the stories I hear. People come up to me, men and women, that say, "My aunt used to wear gloves at the market. My aunt did this. My mom did that. I remember when I wore this petticoat to Sunday school and a hat." So I hear all kinds of stories, and I really love that. And so that's been a highlight in making and designing hats. But coming through 2020, I just learned to adjust and say shift over to Zooming. And now I'm booked to speak at the Plymouth Public Library in November and on Zoom. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that with us. Now, we want to hear three things from you before we wrap up the show. We want to know a recent win in business and what's on the horizon for you. And then I'll save the last question.
Okay. Well, a recent win, a couple of quick things. First of all, the ongoing connections that have happened in 2020, despite the pandemic, being introduced to other people through organizations, that's been a win-win. And also reconnecting with Andrea Field. She's the founder of Needle Arts and Crafts. Awesome. We've been sewing together since decades before. We reconnected a couple of years ago. She started a sewing school in downtown Farmington and asked me to be an instructor. So a person can eventually learn how to make something like this and other pieces. But we do all type of sewing and crafting techniques, and we offer those classes so people can visit Needle Artists and Crafters and learn more. That is a real big win, because I really had a vision for being in touch again with people, because I used to teach the craft years ago, like in 6-week segments at Minnesota Fabrics, which no longer exists. But it was a fabric store, and did that for about 2 or 3 years. So it taught hundreds of people how to make hats. And so now teaching it there is going to be fun. That's a highlight.
Was that a .org?
Yes, it is. Needle Artists and Crafters with an S.org.
You got it. All right. Let's get that up on the screen. Thank you. All right. So we love that. What can we expect from Hat Moments?
Well, I'm going to be ramping up my speaking opportunities and visibility. Working with a coach, and so I'm looking forward to doing some more speaking and beyond hats as well.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, one of my core values really is bringing out the best in others and inspiring others to be the best of what they can be and the gift and calling that they have.
I know that you, in addition to your extraordinary passion and love for speaking about hats and hat history, even making them, I know that you're also a poet.
Yes, I love writing poetry. So far, I've done only a few, but I did write one regarding hats. Would you like to hear it?
Absolutely.
Well, it's called About Time, of course, right? And right before I opened for Damon Terrell, he's a musician. He had what was called a sophisticated evening at the Grand Piano. It was at the Music Hall in May of 2018. And right before that event, I wrote this poem. Was late 19th century a restricted time? Tight-waisted fashions with corsets that bind. Time of the hourglass silhouette, big hats topped with feathers, birds, and net. Victorian Edwardian was the fashion trend, with women's organs all squished within. Early 20th century, a dress called a sack, vertical silhouette, chemise, and all of that. This comfy loose fit took off, and how? Comfort and ease were the buzzwords now. Knitwear and jersey as designers led, making way for the fashions ahead. Then 1940s timeline in fashion, fabric shortages, coupons, and rationing. Society changes from effects of the war. 5 buttons, 2 pleats, 2 pockets, no more. The good news is hats were not restricted, but buying one, you paid a high tax on it. Yes, 33%. So you had to want it bad. Hats lifted morale. They were more than just a fad. Hat history, hat moments, it's all about time, looking at some past, but not staying behind. For learning and discovering and appreciating too, designs of the past and all things new. Thank you.
Wonderful. That is incredible. And we want to hear one more thing from you. We want to know a specific service, product that we can support you in. What is it that you want us to share with the world? And what do you want us to know about you as we visit your website today?
Well, I would love for you to share me out, to tell other people about me, whether it's walking in your library. That's how the Warren Library event happened. A patron walked in and said, I saw this hat person talk about hats at the Troy Historic Village. Can you bring her here? And I got that booking. So share me at your library, your women's association, your women's church groups, all types of organizations, not just women. Men are my audiences as well, especially at libraries, right? Patrons are men, women, boys, and girls. The thing about hats, it can speak to anyone. I can talk to a little kid about a hat. I have a colleague who has a 3-year-old who said, Mommy, I want to learn about hats. And she doesn't know why, but she said, I want her to talk to you, Linda. So I'll talk to her about hats.
Wonderful. We know that Mark is happy that it's a conversation that can include men as well. So thank you, Mark, for your comments. And he says that he's going to share you and ask, do you create, speak about men's hats?
I don't make hats. I have done it by special request before, but I always made women's hats. But that question is interesting because I always made hats, then my hat history really surrounded hats. You can do it 1940s and all that. But a couple of people recently asked me, they said, hey, don't you talk about men's hats? And I said, I hadn't been. I did cover a little bit of it with the, Prince William and the bowler hat in the last presentation I did, but I need to talk a little bit more about it because they have their whole hat history too, in their pinch waist suits and the tiny lapels with their hats. And so it's all very interesting, and theirs ties in to a lot of things that were happening in history in our society as well.
Wonderful. Is there any particular social media platform you want the Global Pep Squad to find you at today?
Yes, well, please find me at hatmoments.com. That's my website. I also have a YouTube channel and Facebook as well as Instagram. And eventually I'll be on Pinterest. So please share me out. I have some content to share, just some fun historical clips that I'll be sharing on YouTube of some historical moments of mine or some old movie clips, and just a lot of fun, entertaining information.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being today's guest star, Linda Hanna. We have enjoyed you and these hat moments. We hope you come back again when you have something additional to share. I want to give you a moment to speak about your role in a widow's resilience before we go.
Okay, well, I will say I met Latanya several years ago, and unfortunately, she was widowed in 2018. Well, I have been widowed. I was widowed in 2010 after almost 30 years of marriage. And so I knew the heartache and the heartbreak and what she went through. But I never knew that I'd have an opportunity to share and help other women in a large manner. I never thought about it at all. But last August, she approached me and said that she was given a book title on her heart a week after her husband passed, and it was called A Widow's Resilience. And she asked me if I would share my story. So I share my story along with 14 other authors, and the book will be released soon. It's purple and it has a butterfly on it. I don't think Latanya even knows that I love butterflies. I have such a collection. It's amazing about even the history of the butterflies. So, but it's a privilege to be a part of it. And my prayer and hope is that it will encourage women, and it will inspire them, it will strengthen them, and they will really be blessed and strengthened by all the stories in this book. And I thank Latanya for asking me.
I'm sure they will be, and we will have Latanya Orr featured on the show in the near future to speak about this curation as well. Thank you, Linda Hanna. We are going to make sure, as the Global Pep Squad, that we surround you with some love and with a mighty whoop whoop, and drive some traffic to your sites today. Visit your social media, check you out, and subscribe to your channels as well. So thank you for sharing that with us. Mary Wells says she loves butterflies too.
Great.
And I know that Mary has connected with you already, and hopefully
Yes.
you can have some great conversations with the wonderful audience that we have here in this Global Pep Squad community. So if you hang out in the green room with me for a moment, I'm going to wrap up the show. I'll be right back to you, okay?
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so Global Pep Squad, I mean, you showed up and you showed out one more time. Thank you for all the views on YouTube. You've heard me say before, you might have even heard Trina Poole say, who does our voiceover on the intro, that it's lonely on YouTube if there's just a couple people hanging out there making comments. So we want to spread this community out. Visit all the platforms for the show. Share it from as many places as you can so that word continues to spread wide and broad, far and deep about our guest stars and what they're doing to elevate the conversation around entrepreneurship. I want to see you in the guest star seat in the near future. So nominate yourself. And I want you to visit me. The most direct way to reach me is on my Linktree site. And I've added that directly to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So you can click it, find me. I want you to earn rewards for joining the Global Pep Squad community. And I certainly want you to enjoy all of the reading opportunities, sharing, learning, and growing that we have built into that Linktree site for you. So you know what? I want you to be blessed. I want you to be encouraged. I want you to live life to the fullest. I want you to count on one another and count on me as we grow businesses together. I thank you for the comments that are still pouring in. Linda Hanna and I will do our best to engage every comment across the platforms in the coming days. And y'all be blessed, be encouraged. Wear your hat today, and let's close out with this outro video, y'all. Thank you so much for being here and being a part of the Global Pep Squad here on Pep Talk Live with Tisha Hammond, the small business cheerleader.